have a lot to say, surprisingly, I surprised myself with this, about Jessie Murf, who, because again, that feels like half a name to me, I want to just refer to as Jessica Murphy, because it just seems right. I will call her Jessie Murf. I assume that's her whole name, but I'm going to do something of a weave here, as Trump would say, because what's really buzzing over the last few days has been Jessie Murf, this new 1965 song and music video. There's also the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle ad, which you've probably seen at this point, and a couple of other things that I think are relevant in the realm of things that are being discussed right now in actually the news world. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk about 1965 by Jessica Murphy, probably not her real name, but it sounds like it should be, so I might just decide to go with it, is that it's really what she's doing in this video. This is 1965 being performed by her on The Tonight Show. And actually, this ties into everything we were just talking about with late night too. You're going to see some of this come up on your screen. Jessie Murf, there you go, doing a sort of mid-century. I mean, it's really giving Priscilla. That's the first thing you have to say. There's some other, kind of obvious parallels and sort of just generally the style of the time as well, but. The lyrics I'm going to read and put up on the screen in just a second, because they're a pretty fascinating juxtaposition with what you're seeing on the screen right now. And the reaction from a lot of people is worth talking about too, because I'm actually not convinced the left is wrong about everything that's going on here. So let's put these lyrics up. This song is going... it's a big, what's the best way to put it? I was going to say going viral, but everything that's popular right now is viral. So it feels a little redundant to say that. But this song is actually causing quite a debate. I think especially among Gen Z, but here's the intro. My hair is high, coke is cheap, it's a great time to be alive. Studies are now saying that cigarettes are recommended and women belong in the kitchen. That's sort of a little voiceover. She says, we'd go to church on a Sunday, wake up on a Monday. You'd go to work and I'd stay home and sing and do fun things. This line that I'm about to read next has been particularly focused on. I might get a little slap, but you wouldn't hit me on Snapchat. Don't effing text me at 2 a.m. saying, where you at? Boy, F you. You'd handwrite me letters when you went away. You'd make me feel better. You'd know what to say. And maybe you'd still be a hoe. But if you cheated, hell, I wouldn't know. I want you to love me like it's 1965. Oh, I want you to want me. I think I'd give up a few rights if you would just love me like it's 1965. Okay, so now here's some of the reaction. This is... from someone on X who says Jessie Murf's entire existence as a pop star is a gigantic fash indicator. Here's another one. Jessie Murf, new song 1965, has a lyric that says, quote, I might get a little slap, but you wouldn't hit me on Snapchat, referring to how she would rather be subject to domestic violence in 1965 than modern day dating. And I cannot stop thinking about it. That's so insane. This one's good. Jessie Murf is like if someone made a Russian nesting doll of Lana Del Rey, Amy Winehouse, Snooki, and a single crack rock. Another person on X, that one was well done. But let me switch back to the lyrics here. This is absolutely in conversation with the New York Times essay that we talked about last week, where the author earnestly waxed poetic about what she describes as quote unquote heteropessimism, which is basically this pessimism about men, which I think we more accurately described as heterorealism, because men will be men till the end of time, and there simply can be no doubt about that. But norms, of course, change. And one of the reasons we talked about that New York Times essay and that New York Times author yearning for, a more responsive, this is someone, by the way, who was in an open marriage, divorced, on the dating scene, talking to people about group sex, whatever the hell else goes on in that circle of people. But just having this deep frustration with who men are. And I mean, dating norms have exploded in many different ways over the last several decades. And I don't think it's wrong to read these Jessie Murph lyrics actually as yearning for a time when men to a point, by the way, where she's actually even invoking violence and saying she would tolerate violence. She would prefer to tolerate violence, a little quote unquote slap, because there's something more attractive to her about that time compared to right now in 2025. So when you have presumably people on the left saying things like, for instance, Jessie Murph's entire existence as a quote-unquote pop star is a gigantic fash indicator, people have said something similar, for what it's worth. People have said something similar about Sydney Sweeney. We'll get to that in just a moment. And, you know, it's anyone who is like blonde and doing Americana, that's like a hip new trend to say people are fash indicators. But with Jessie Murph, I'm not convinced that that's actually incorrect. And I think this is a really interesting piece of pop culture. The video, the actual official music video for it is interesting in a lot of ways that the Tonight Show performance was, but you see, I call this like cultural physics. You know, it's the pendulum swinging back with Gen Z after being exposed to the excesses of what's arguably like fourth wave feminism at this point. I often quote a BuzzFeed article from a few years back in which one of the young women who was interviewed, the headline of the article was something like, Gen Z has soured on sex positivity, and I'm paraphrasing it, but one of the young women who's interviewed, who is a rape victim, says in the article, she mentions HBO's Girls, she says Sex and the City, and says HBO, quote, did a number on me, about how the culture of sex positivity was way more perilous, way more fraught, and full of pain, was not empowering. Like Gen Z was told that it would be. And that's really sad because it shows an experiment obviously played out in real time, and there were real life guinea pigs who turned out to be the victims of an experiment that people, when it was starting, were cautioning against, of course. And, you know, here women are in 2025, and because that experiment was so deeply painful, they are wanting to swing so far back, or they're at least flirting with the idea of swinging so far back, and singing about it sort of flirtatiously, romantically, nostalgically, about a time they don't really remember, 1965. But that's because the pain of Snapchat, for example, is so immiserating that they want to swing back to 1965. And you see this in the sort of exaggerated beehive hair. It's this to absurd proportions. And that's what the lyrics of the songs are doing, right? Like they are, they're not literal in all likelihood. And I'm probably giving Jessie Murph a little bit too much credit here. I'm not sure who is the like, if there was any type of intellectual, if there's any type of intellectual formulation that went into these lyrics, I actually think there must have been. I don't know if it came from her or someone else, but I think this is so intentional, the way that the lyrics are written. Just again, to zoom in, embarrassing fact about me, I do have a degree in creative writing with a concentration in poetry. It cost my parents a lot of money, but here we are. If you look at it, you can see that there's a lot of, this is the second verse. You'd show up the door with flowers and ask me what I am doing an hour 3:30. We'd go to dinners and movies and such. We'd just hold hands and I'd love every touch, and I would be 20 and it'd be acceptable for you to be 40. And that is effed up, I know, but at least you wouldn't drive off before I get in the effing door. And then there's just a lot of F words. But I actually think that what's happening here is pretty intentional, and whoever wrote these lyrics, or whoever wanted these lyrics to read the way that they do, she is credited as a writer on the song, along with a few other people, which could mean many different things. Just ask Taylor Swift. Ooh, maybe I shouldn't have gone there, but I did. This is pretty clearly a deliberate comment, and I think it's deliberately absurdist, and you can see that in the music video with a beehive hairdo that's going up like 10 feet high. She's since posted it on her Instagram, but it's doing something on purpose. And I think it's also really striking to see that on The Tonight Show, which is one of the, I think, iconic brands of that time period. And so to see someone doing this kind of reactionary tribute to the era, while also acknowledging its negative qualities, but saying I'd rather have it, it goes beyond simple nostalgia, right? It goes beyond romanticizing, and that's what nostalgia is. It's having that like romantic yearning for a time gone past that is rooted in kind of glossing over whatever was wrong in that time period, or saying, well, those days were still better, and that's what's happening here in 1965.